When I was growing up in a small town in Arizona, I never had thoughts of becoming a sports photographer, let alone teaching sports photography as a way to make a living. I had the typical thoughts, I want to be an astronaut, all the tang I can drink and things like that. Or maybe the lead singer in a rock and roll band like Freddie Mercury. What did I really want to do? By the time I got into high school, I wanted to be a rock and roll DJ. Morning show, drive time, just really kicking the music out to everybody and having some funny bits along the way. Or maybe even like an evening drive time. People are driving home, I could have that cool, deep DJ voice. Would have been so cool. Eventually what I decided to do was I would go to college. Go to college and maybe I can get on the radio station there and I can kick my career off as a rock and roll DJ. Jumped in my car, headed to a small college in southern Utah, about 8-hour drive away from where I grew up. Got to get away from the family, got to get away from the parents and be on my own. And I did. I was able to do that. I became a DJ. But and also, every time you go to college, you have to start a punk rock lip sync band. That's right. And yes, that is a photo of me. I took many radio classes, a lot of TV classes. I finally decided, I like those, so let's make my major communication where I can have a radio and TV emphasis. I thought that'd be great. Got my degree, also got married in college, ended up getting my BS degree in communications, like I said, radio, TV emphasis, and decided, you know what, let's get those dreams, let's work for it. So my wife and I loaded up all our belongings and headed to Salt Lake City, Utah, so I could become a rock and roll DJ. It's a pretty dog-eat-dog world, I found out, and you don't just break into it overnight. It takes a lot of work, and even then, it may not happen. So for me, it didn't happen. I did get a job immediately as a kind of an audio engineer type thing for a 976 dating service. I'll just leave that right there for you guys, a 976 dating service. And as luck would have it, they ran out of money. They were making millions of dollars. They ran out of money. Eventually, I did have one break happen, and I worked for a recording studio. This was almost a dream job in a way. I thought it was great, this big mixing board. One of the projects I was on, I got to work with Joan Beatros, who was with CNN at the time, and I got to work with superstar Merrill Osmond. And yes, he really is a super nice guy. Unfortunately, they ran out of money. This company ran out of money as well and stopped paying me and some other of the employees for about 2-3 weeks. I had a family at the time and we needed this money. My wife had a job, which was good steady income, but we needed more than that to be able to survive. And so I finally said, see ya, I'm out of here. I ended up finding a job at the largest bicycle retailer in Utah as a bicycle assembler. I had no experience at all with bicycles, no clue what I was doing, except I knew how to ride them. Well, after about a year, I actually got enough experience and I happened to have this mechanical aptitude, which is always good to have. And I ended up being the bicycle mechanic at one of their outlet stores. But I saw the writing on the wall. The market was saturated, sales were dropping. I knew it was just a matter of time before they started cutting stores, cutting personnel, and I was right. Didn't take too long after an upcoming decision I'm about to tell you about was made that they basically went out of business. What we had done is my wife and I, we saw this, we talked about it, and we had 2 kids at the time now. We decided, well, you know what, let's move. Big chance. Let's take another move back to Arizona, the small town that I grew up in, to be closer to family that hardly got a chance to see us. Eventually I ended up with a really nice job working for the local town government. Small town, so I wore lots of hats. I was officially the code enforcement guy. That's what I did first, was code enforcement officer. I was also the IT computer tech, the cemetery manager. After a couple of years, an opening came up in Parks and Rec, and I thought, that's a no-brainer. Parks and Rec, that's a blast. Get to organize events, get to work with sports again. So I did that for several more years. And that's when I kind of dabbed in sports photography just a little bit. And so I used to take some photos of the events we had, the 10Ks, basketball, adult basketball, stuff like that. Also at this time, I applied to be a high school sports official. But my knees started feeling the stress, and I was thinking, I need to be doing something else now. This is just becoming too painful to do. Even though I really enjoy it, I need to move on to something else. And right about this exact same time, I was approached by a public access news organization. They'd gotten some sponsorship to have a sports show, a sports segment on their news. And they were given my name, and they came and approached me. The station manager, the owner, actually said, hey, we can pay you this much amount of money. As long as the sponsorship continues to go, you'll be able to do this.
And now it's time for Craig Lash with sports.
Welcome to the 71 Sports Report. I'm Craig Lash. This week we're going to take a look at some golf. But first thing we got to do is get rid of this heavy steel stuff that's so cumbersome and just not much fun to carry on the golf course. Instead, we're going to pick up some nice lightweight plastic. That's right, we're not doing your traditional golf. We're going to check out some disc golf.
It was a blast. I got to learn how to do video. Didn't do any photo yet, but I worked with video, had my own video camera, a little small camera I got to use. But eventually, the sponsorship, as you can see a pattern in my life, they ran out of money, so I had to move on to something else. Right about this time, soon after, I was approached by a radio station. The station manager got together with me and said, hey, we're putting together a broadcast team. We want you to be on it and do play-by-play. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. No problem. Get to keep my real job, and now I'm on the radio doing play-by-play. I'm on the radio. The first year was really rough. I was supposed to do play-by-play, but the color guy knew nothing about sports, so we switched roles for a little while and finished out the seasons that way, and it just wasn't that fun. I was thinking, I may not go back and do this. The next year, I was approached again, said, do you still want to do this? We have a new team. Like, yeah, I'll give it a shot one more year. Great team. These guys were so much fun to work with. I was doing play-by-play. We had a great color guy, and we had an on-the-field reporter. So we had a great, successful season. The next year came around, and we'd had some ideas as a team that we thought would make this show, make this sports team broadcasting unit so much better. Station manager didn't want to do any of our ideas, and we had to decide what do we want to do now. Most of the team quit and said, no, we're done. We're going to do something else. And I was on the fence, but you back your team. That was my team. I backed them, so I walked away as well. What did we end up doing? Well, one of the team members said, hey, I'm going to start a sports website. I'll get us all cameras. We can be photojournalists. And so that's what we did next. So this is when I really started getting into sports photography. Not really getting deep into it, but this is like my first taste of sports photography. We're given cameras, and I think, the camera, Nikon D70, Sigma 50 to 150 lens. I still have this stuff right here. Now, the problem with the sports photography was all I was given was a list of settings that I should use for each venue, each high school I was shooting at, which I didn't really learn anything that way. And there wasn't really much out there on YouTube or anything anywhere. So it's one of those, where do you learn from? So I got a few books, looked at lots of books, looked at lots of magazines, tried to get an idea of what to do, but even that just wasn't enough to figure things out. So I just basically made my way through it and just took the images and edited them the best I could at the time. We did this for a few years. Got a good following, but what we found out was a lot of people, they didn't really care that much about the photos. So we weren't really selling any photos, and we were starting to have troubles getting sponsorship. So what happened? Well, we had to disband this. And this is like 2007, 2008. Then things really start crashing down. Soon after this, I was let go from my job. There were some cuts. Myself and a bunch of other people eventually were let go. And so I was out of a job completely. So what I do, I hung out for a little bit, talked to some family, and decided, you know what? I know how to do video. I know how to create websites now. I know how to shoot photos. It's relatively good. I'm getting better. I'm learning more and more as I go. So I started my own public access sports network. Hello and welcome to Small Town Sports Network, also known as STSN. I'm Craig Lash along with my colleague John Thompson. But this is when I got this, I really started learning more about photography, videography, really learning lighting, how important the lighting is, how to control your aperture, your ISO, all the main stuff you really need to know. I really started getting more serious about it. What also happened was I was learning more about photography and getting pretty good at it. And what eventually happened too, I found myself helping. I'd go to an event and say someone with a camera, a parent or a grandparent, I'd see them just kind of looking at their camera, can't figure things out. I'd kind of walk by and just start up a conversation, end up giving them some pointers on what they needed to do. Or I found myself helping like the yearbook staff at high schools quite a bit. And I remember several of them just kind of looking like they had no idea what they were doing, or they'd take some photos and they'd look, grumpy, like, I didn't get it. So I'd go help them as well. So all of that led to me becoming a sports photographer and starting to teach sports photography, which is what I'm doing now. and it's so much fun. I really enjoy sending these videos out to you guys, working one-on-one with everybody. It's just a blast. I hope that this has kind of shed some light on how I got to where I am now, give you a little bit of my backstory. Maybe some of you have had these trials and tribulations as well, to where you started out one place and next thing you know, you end up someplace completely different than what you anticipated. And there's my story. It's kind of condensed. It's actually longer than that, but I hit the highlights for you so you can see where I came from, what I originally wanted to do with my life, and now where I'm at. Helping you guys, helping you make those great images, helping you capture memories, capture history. Thanks for joining me, everybody. And don't forget, get out and shoot.